Canada's railway network, stretching across a staggering 48,000 kilometers, forms the backbone of the country's transportation and commerce, linking its vast expanse from the bustling city of Vancouver in the west to the historic port of Halifax in the east. The Canadian National Railway, CN, and Canadian Pacific Railway, CPR, are the two titans of this system, with the CPR, built in the 19th century, still serving as a critical artery that shaped the nation's growth. Every time a train weaves through the towering Rockies or glides across the wide-open prairies, it's easy to overlook the fact that this grand engineering achievement would never have been possible without the blood, sweat, and lives of thousands of Chinese laborers. Their monumental contribution to this nation-changing project has often been brushed aside, but their story is inseparable from the history of Canada's most iconic infrastructure.
The story of the Canadian Pacific Railway truly begins in the 1880s, when Canada, a newly unified nation, was eager to connect its sprawling landmass to secure its political and economic future. The country needed a transcontinental railway to unite its provinces and fuel its economy, but the dream of laying tracks across the harsh, unforgiving landscapes of British Columbia, with its towering mountains and thick forests, seemed nearly impossible. The solution came in the form of Chinese laborers, thousands of men who crossed the Pacific Ocean in search of better lives, only to find themselves at the mercy of some of the most dangerous and grueling working conditions imaginable. They were willing to work for less than their European counterparts, and in return, they faced some of the most perilous tasks in the construction of the railway. In the treacherous Fraser Canyon, one of the most challenging segments of the railway's construction, Chinese workers took on unimaginable risks. With nothing more than ropes to secure them, they dangled from cliffs, chiseling rock faces to clear the way for the railway, all while handling dynamite to blast tunnels through mountains. The conditions were so dangerous that tragedy was never far away. One deadly miscalculation with the explosives, and several men were killed instantly. A heartbreaking reality that was repeated many times over. It's estimated that nearly 600 Chinese workers died during the construction of the railway, whether from work-related accidents or diseases like scurvy, which ravaged the camps due to poor nutrition and living conditions. Unlike their European peers, who were typically given safer and less strenuous jobs, the Chinese laborers were relegated to the most dangerous and physically demanding tasks, clearing thick forests, laying tracks over steep ravines, and working with volatile explosives.
These men worked from sunrise to sunset, facing constant danger and exhausting labor, all while living in makeshift camps with little to no access to medical care, poor sanitation, and inadequate food supplies. Disease spread rapidly in these conditions, and many workers succumbed to illness before the railway was completed. Despite these unimaginable hardships, the Chinese laborers pressed on, driven by the hope that their hard-earned wages would eventually make it back to their families in China. For many, however, the price of this dream was their life. While their contribution to building the Canadian Pacific Railway was invaluable, the workers faced intense discrimination. Anti-Chinese sentiment was widespread, particularly in British Columbia, where local workers feared that the influx of cheap labor would undercut their job prospects. As the railway neared completion in 1885, the same year that the final spike was driven into the track, the Canadian government introduced the Chinese head tax, a policy designed to restrict Chinese immigration.
$50. And yet they still come. They come, and they were still pouring in. So they jack it up to $100. And that couldn't stop them. They still keep coming and coming and coming. Finally, they raised it to $500, and even $500 couldn't stop them.
The head tax at that time, at my father's time, was this at first started with I think $25, and then $100, $200. Eventually, my father got up to $500, which is a lot of money in those days.
It was a clear message that Chinese laborers, despite their pivotal role in the railway's construction, were not welcome in the country they had helped build. For many of these workers, it was a heartbreaking betrayal, especially after the sacrifices they had made.
After the railway was completed, many Chinese laborers found themselves stranded in Canada, unable to afford the cost of returning home, and with few opportunities to support themselves. Though some formed tight-knit communities in Chinatowns across cities like Vancouver and Toronto, they were often relegated to low-paying, labor-intensive jobs. It would be decades before their contributions were properly acknowledged. For more than a century, the critical role Chinese workers played in the building of the Canadian Pacific Railway went unrecognized. It wasn't until 2006 that the Canadian government formally apologized for the head tax and other discriminatory policies. Prime Minister Stephen Harper publicly acknowledged the sacrifices made by these laborers, calling the policy a stain on Canadian history.
On behalf of the people and government of Canada, we offer a full apology to Chinese Canadians for the head tax and express our deepest sorrow for the subsequent exclusion of Chinese immigrants. Gana Dai Dohi.
Today, their legacy is commemorated in museums like the Chinese Canadian Museum in Vancouver and through various memorials across the country. These tributes serve not only as a reminder of their critical contributions, but also as a testament to their endurance in the face of unimaginable hardships. The construction of the Canadian Pacific Railway is more than just a tale of engineering triumph. It's a story of human endurance. The legacy of the Chinese workers who built it, despite overwhelming odds, endures to this day. Without them, Canada's dream of a transcontinental railway may never have come to fruition, and the history of this vast unified country would have been written much differently.